Yeah, thanks for joining us. We have Pat Kerney here, Zach Rufo, and we wanted to have Pat on today. There's obviously some ties with Patrick to Cape May. Pat grew up outside of Philadelphia, and his parents had a house in Cape May on New York Avenue. And there's some obvious ties to Cape May. And Pat and I had a conversation about a week ago that he still comes to Cape May, lives up in the Connecticut area. And Patrick, I guess start off with a little bit of your love for Cape May, and you still come here with your kids, and your mom's still in the area. I guess that's where we'll start.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, it's every summer memory I have growing up is Cape May, and it's pretty awesome. And you get it as well as anybody. I'd kick my shoes off on June 15th rather, and I wouldn't put them back on until Labor Day, and just live my summers on a bike and at the beach, at the gym, busting tables, at the Lobster House, the old Shire, and it was a pretty magical thing that as a kid you don't really appreciate, but certainly as you get older and look back, you realize how awesome it was on so many fronts. When I bring my kids back there, it's just fun to see them light up at all the things I lit up at their age. The same putt courses, right? The skee ball in the arcades, just slamming into the waves in the beach. It's pretty fun. We were able to come and celebrate my mom's 75th birthday down there this year, and really, really just show them sort of a tour of my childhood summers, and it was a special deal.
Yeah, I mean Cape May. We're a gas tank away from four of the biggest cities on the East Coast, and whenever we talk to people, obviously we're in the real estate business. There's a desire to come here and enjoy it. The draw seems to have a special connection for a lot of people. And when we were growing up 40 years ago, you mentioned that there's still miniature golf and skee ball and the beaches, and the restaurants are booming these days. Cape May went from a Memorial Day to Labor Day to pretty much a year-round community now. A lot of weddings and
Oh yeah.
rental properties, and
If you're looking for it, you'll be able to find it in Cape May. I mean, it's such a unique area because the architecture one, and how almost frozen in time parts of it are, but how new and exciting a lot of the businesses are, restaurants, different things. I mean, you have brand new state of the art restaurants next to homes that were built in 1858, which is kind of a cool contrast.
yeah.
It's great. And, it's not only family friendly, but it's kind of every family friendly, because you've got everything from the low cost motel to 8-figure houses. And that's kind of a rarity. As you look up and down the Eastern Seaboard, you kind of got one or the other. And it's great to have all that there. And as we referenced, those simple pleasures that are timeless, and just make it a fantastic place for families to visit.
Living up in Connecticut, going to the beach. Where's the closest beach for you up that way, and how often do you go?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, we're in Greenwich, in Eastern Greenwich, and it is technically a beach town. It's also a country town, but we have a public beach on Long Island Sound. My wife and I are actually going to go there for dinner tonight. We do take out and go sit at one of the best views you could have in Connecticut. So that's a wonderful facet. Now, you don't get much in waves when you're on the Sound. So if you want that, if we want that, we generally will go further out east into Rhode Island. We enjoy Block Island a great deal. That's a beautiful spot. And that's if we want a beachier experience to the north, it's going to be Block Island.
Yeah, and driving down, we see a lot of New York and Connecticut and Virginia and Maryland and Delaware plates, coming to Cape May. And I feel like years ago, your folks came down from Pennsylvania, but there's been a transition where
they're really pulling from a wide demographic now. I feel like even up to leading into COVID, and then there was a lot of people who knew about Cape May. And then once COVID happened, it was like, there's no more secrets here. Everybody knew about it. Everybody wanted to be here. Like you said, you can drive there from so many major metropolitan areas right in the area, and even 4, 5, 6, a lot of people from Pittsburgh, 7-hour drive, 8 hours, you can still be here, which, you know what I mean? If you leave in the morning, you're here by happy hour, which is.
Word got out.
Yeah, word's gotten out. I mean, it's not a secret anymore. We actually closed a deal last week, and it was a family from D.C. who had been vacationing down here. It's the same thing. I think it took them 4.5 hours to get here, but with traffic and all the other stuff that comes with it, is there other places closer? I'm sure that probably they could have been in, but they love Cape May and, had a, deep connection here, been coming here for a lot of years, and they wanted to call it their second home, and, thankfully they were able to. So, yeah, we pulled from a huge area.
Yeah, like Pat said too, there's it kind of caters to a wide variety of families, whether they're young families or old families. Everything's kind of walking distance or biking distance, and now everybody has the golf carts and the e-bikes. But even up 5-10 miles north of here, Avalon, Stone Harbor, Sea Isle City, there's still kind of Memorial Day to Labor Day. And that's kind of a stretch. But Cape May, with all the weddings and the music festivals, there's a lot that goes on year-round. The West Cape May Christmas Parade.
Cape May Christmas Parade.
Which is a huge draw.
I don't know if you guys have ever been down here for the West Cape May Christmas Parade, but if you're looking for something to do at Christmas with the family, that's I would say one of the top things you could possibly do around here. I know a lot of the connections we have of friends and businesses said that they were doing better numbers in December of this past year than they were, or equivalent to July. Thankfully the weather cooperated, things were good, but Cape May is as advertised and fits the bill about as much as you could for an old Victorian town at Christmas time.
Yeah, but I know, or I don't know. I guess better to ask you. I feel like what was done with Congress Hall, which is an architectural gem, not only in Cape May, but on the East Coast. I look at like the Ocean House up in Rhode Island as maybe something similar, but something so unique was sort of the hub of that expansion into a year-round town. Where I remember we came there for Thanksgiving years ago, and the next day they had the Christmas train in the front yard of Congress Hall. And I thought that was sort of proof of concept that Cape May is an awesome place.
Absolutely. And it's one of my favorite things about Cape May personally is that how they've managed to keep a lot of the corporate stuff out. Sometimes even if you go to Savannah, it's a similar, beautiful old town, but there's, these old motels that are owned by Marriott and things like that. Not that that's bad. They come in, they pump money to the economy, but everything is privately owned. Even these bigger corporations, hospitality corporations that we have down here, there's still small players in the national hospitality game. There's not a McDonald's in town. I mean, there's a Wawa. That's, CVS in West Cape May. But everything else is mom and pop, And I think in the world that we live in where everything is so commercialized and, you can order something from Amazon and it'll be here in 6 hours at your doorstep. People like to almost step back in time where things slow down a little bit and, you can go shopping on the Washington Street Mall and, all those places are, privately owned and half the time you're walking in and the owner's behind the counter, which is cool. It's unique. It doesn't happen a lot anymore.
It shows the strength of the zoning in the town because there's almost no way they haven't been offered, probably some illegal offerings to allow big national brands in the town, and they take their responsibility seriously in preserving what makes the town so special.
Yeah, there was development over the last couple of years that had been proposed in there, and they were like, this is going to impact the infrastructure so much that it doesn't make sense for us to the way the town is. Would it be great? Absolutely, but it's going to compromise the infrastructure of the town, so we're not going to approve this to move forward. And there's good and bad arguments for both sides, but Cape May, the city of Cape May, and Zach Mullock, the mayor, and everybody there, they do a good job of protecting it to what it is, and reinvesting, in the infrastructure to make sure that 30 years from now, when our kids are our age doing this stuff, that it's still going to be there. You're planning for the next generation when you're doing stuff like this.
It seems like a lot of stuff that they've been doing recently. They put a ADA approved pathway on the beach, and it stretches from the cove almost to Convention Hall, or a little past Convention Hall. And that is one of the biggest challenges. Pat, you mentioned the zoning with these older buildings. When hotels and motels renovate and they don't start from the ground up, they're not required to do certain ADA.
They get grandfathered in.
Right? So a lot of these older buildings that are in Cape May, some of them have elevators, but they don't have roll-in showers. I think, like Zach just mentioned too, it's been a good kind of mesh of the city moving forward, but also kind of keeping it rootsy. And I think that obviously the proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
When Cape May's packed to the gills. They had a proposal for $150 million motel across from Convention Hall, and it didn't get approved. You're talking about serious money being invested into the town, but the town didn't feel like it was appropriate for it, and they moved on. What's going to happen with the old movie theater? I think it'll
get developed. This was the infrastructure. It'll get developed at some point.
Sure.
Probably on a scaled down version, from one of these hospitality groups, and it'll be beautiful. It'll be nice. But again, you don't want to sacrifice to where it's not going to benefit the town, or you're going to take away from the integrity of it works and is beautiful the way it is. So if we're going to have new development, let's make sure it's the right development. And even the HPC, which is the Historical Preservation Committee in Cape May, if you ask around, I'm not knocking them. People say they're a nightmare to deal with, but they keep Cape May. Those houses, even it trickles down. We have the opportunity to sell $2, $3, $4 million houses in Cape May because they keep Cape May. They're not selling it out, or they're keeping the integrity and the beauty and the history, and it's on the National Historic Registry as one of the
historic cities
in the country.
Pat's parents had a house on the 1200 block of New York Avenue, and there's a group of 3 or 4 houses that 3, they're identical, and cedar shake siding, wood windows. You can't have AZAC, you can't have vinyl siding, you can't have vinyl windows. And when you drive around that area of Cape May, there's some development that's going on behind where the old Shelton College used to be and the Christian Admiral. And those houses, are required to have certain guidelines that keeps Cape May, the HPC, and also the Shade Tree Commission, which when people look, when they come to realtors,
crazy. Yeah.
They come to realtors and they say, I'm going to put a pool in, and I'm going to put a 2-car garage in, and I'm going to do this. And it's like, whoa, slow down here. There are regulations that you have to follow, and that's why Sea Isle City is Sea Isle and Cape May is Cape May. Mm-hmm. They've preserved that, and like you said, education, making the client aware of what they think they can do and what they can do. I think the HPC overall has done a really, really nice job with preserving Cape May.
Yeah, I agree. They're strict on what you can do, but they're very open to development if you do it the right way.
Sure.
And absolutely. I wouldn't have it a different way because it would take away the integrity of Cape May.
That's right.
The beauty and everything else.
Charm. That's the buyer, both year round and seasonal. The buyer is buying the charm.
Exactly. You're selling that. We had sold a house last year, and we had looked at some old stuff, some new construction. We kind of settled back in on there was a house on Washington Street. It was one of the 100 historic homes in Cape May, historically protected, everything. And when we were sitting down with the buyers, the wife had said, I'm like, what do you like? Do you like this? Do you like the new one? She's like, the new one, if I want a new house, she's like, yeah, it feels like my house back at home, up in Pennsylvania. She's like, if I'm coming to Cape May, I want to feel like I'm in Cape May. I want the floor to be a little bit slanted because it's 150 years old. The door frame might be a little bit crooked and not closed correctly, but that's the charm that you're buying. And you're as much as you're selling a house, you're selling the lifestyle of living in Cape May. And that's
stressed about sand getting in the house. Like it's,
yeah, you can't. Then you know what? Don't buy at the beach if that's what people are looking for. Do you ever go back on and look up your grandparents' house, see what it looks like, see what it's worth today?
oh my gosh, no, my great aunt's house actually was what first brought us to Cape May. It's on the corner of Congress and it's an iconic house. It's Congress. I forget the cross street, but one block up from the mall or one block south of the mall, and it's it's a corner one with the big tower and like
Okay.
the curved shingles. But look, the dirt alone, there is many multiples, even adjusted for inflation.
Oh, it's
And
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful house. And I would hope that it will never go away. It will, perpetually be repaired to maintain where it is because it is one of the iconic Victorian homes in Cape May. But yeah, the one on New York Avenue, that's changed hands. Only once to some good friends of ours. It's still their house. It's still their family gathering
Oh, that's
place.
good.
Yeah, the Boylans. So
Yeah.
it's in good hands. But yeah, it's fun, biking my kids by the house on New York Avenue, the one we had on Beach Avenue, the one we had on New Jersey Avenue. Taking them by. I said where I used to bus tables, where I used to serve ice cream, all that stuff. It's a lot of real positive memories, and it's funny now as a parent wanting to develop children. Even the busing tables is such a positive memory in terms of personal development. It's a grind. And
Everybody should work in the food service industry for
Yeah.
at least a couple years.
yeah, it's good for you. So you should do like two years in food service, 2 years in military, and you'd
Good to go. Right out into the real world.
Pat, yeah, you had mentioned you have 4 kids. I mean, did you have children when you were playing professional football, or was that post career? How was that transition with football into fatherhood?
Yeah, no. I was fortunate that I didn't meet my wife until I arrived in Seattle, and we didn't get married till right after I retired, and hence didn't have kids till whatever a year after retirement, or a little bit more than that, year and a half. And it. I realized how blessed I was for the timing of things in my life, because as I've tried to explain to my children about selfishness and selflessness and the balance. And I explained, like, look, kids, in my 20s, when I was playing professional football, I was an extremely selfish person. I ate when I had to eat. I slept when I had to sleep, and worked out when I had to work out. Nothing got in the way of that. And it was what I explained to them as a selfless selfishness, because it was to optimize that opportunity, so that they could someday have a great life full of opportunity. And in retrospect, I look at my teammates who had children when they were playing, and I marvel at them because, as I explained, I either would have been a terrible husband and father, or much less of a football player.
Mm.
I had to have that, very valuable drain of family life, because it's you're never off the clock, really, right?
You have a limited window to make it happen for yourself. And, like you said, as, selfish as it seemed, that's the job, right? If you want to be successful, these are the things you need to do. And then if you don't do them, something's losing somewhere, right? You don't get to be as successful. But it just seems like you had the foresight to realize, okay, if I do this now, everything's going to be better for everybody when I'm out, right? I mean, how many years did you play? You played a lot of years.
11 years.
I was going to say 11. I knew it was double digits, where, the average NFL career is much less than that. So to have the longevity is, a testament to you and the work and, that you've put into the career and your own health and everything else that comes along with it.
I laugh. I often describe my story when I walked on at the University of Virginia. I said I walked on with the expectation that about a week in, they would send me home, and they never sent me home 15 years later.
15 years later, right?
I just kept showing up and kept, sort of draining the tank every day on the practice field, on game day, and in the weight room and the film room. And, before I knew it, it was time to hang it up. But to your point, as I often try to tell young players in the NFL or even at the college level, I'll go down to Charlottesville to speak to the Virginia team next week, is, while most people have, 50 years, 40, 50 years to build something special professionally, if you're lucky, you got 10. And to compromise that is beyond absurd, because most guys in the NFL, after that first contract, they have experienced socioeconomic elevation that they just couldn't in any other industry at that age, and they can do it fast. And a lot of guys come from really tough backgrounds, and they have a chance to make not only their lives but generations of lives better if they're willing to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, I remember I was listening to sports radio. Chris Canty was on ESPN, and he was talking about the first NFL check that he got. I guess after his rookie season, he got it like some type of an extension or whatever, and it was a 7-digit check. And he said the most nervous he was ever in his life was driving from the stadium where he got paid to the bank.
Get the money in the bank.
To get the money in the bank. And he said all the bank tellers, he said literally all the bank tellers and the managers were coming in going, like, is this like legit? And he was there with his mom. And he said his mom's face summed up everything. It was just, a very, very rewarding, but also extremely like socioeconomic economic change for these individuals that are, playing their tails off in high school and college. Well, now there's payment for players in college, right? But to have that, just life-changing career with financial, that is just, it's life-changing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it comes down to, these individuals, like you said, they have really, really tough backgrounds, and sports is a lot of times the only thing that they have to, focus in on and have some positive energy in their lives. And I remember when Pat used to work out at Cape May Fitness in West Cape May on Park Boulevard, and Tony Gennaro, who's now a police officer in Cape May, Pat came back. I swear he grew about 5 or 6 inches, and he probably put on about 35 or 40 pounds. But, not that you were an average size in the NFL, but, Pat's this huge structure, and there's so many other players in the NFL that were his size or bigger. So that grind to, there's a lot of credit to be given to you for, like you said, focusing in, eating right, working out when you had to, and not having to focus on children, because, when I was growing up, my dad was working 4 jobs, and if I saw him in a swim meet, it was like the best thing in the planet, because I knew that he was working so that we could do what we wanted to do. No, it was a really interesting story. I was thinking about it when I was listening to it with Chris Canty with that life-changing money. And, there's a lot of individuals, too, that play professional sports that just blow it, right? And, they're not backed by individuals like yourself who go out and speak to them, say, look, take advantage of this, mm-hmm. do this right, invest properly, real estate or stock market or whatever it is, but don't just go out and blow it, because you have a 10-year window max to capitalize on it, right?
Yeah. And if managed properly, the one thing that usually turns them off the most is when I say, because a lot of guys, it's fun to be 23 years old and say you have a financial advisor, right? That's kind of puffing out your chest a little bit and saying that means I have finances that need advising. So it's kind of the humble brag. But it's this great decision. And, as I often tell these guys, like, I put it to them this way. I said, guys, you've got a 33-year-old defensive end who is coming off of 4 off-season surgeries, had 5.5 sacks last year, and is due to be your highest paid defensive lineman that year. Are you keeping him? Are you cutting him? And every hand in the room goes up, and they said, we're cutting him. Right, because football. The criteria, and the defensive end I was talking about. That was this guy. Had I decided to play one more year, it would have been on another team or on a redone deal. But anyways, they make these hires And right, I've heard it all from, oh well, he was my brother's financial advisor, to, oh, he's LeBron James's financial advisor, to, whatever. It's like, well, that doesn't matter. Like, what are their returns on investment? What's their historical record? What are their returns net of fees? What are their relative returns net of fees? All this stuff, and guys like, oh man, like I may have made the wrong decision. So we have our lanes, and we're masters in our lanes, and we know the criteria that we can hire and fire people with. But unfortunately, it's not much. They come into money and they don't have the criteria to make that decision. They get themselves in trouble that way often.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that can kind of lead way too with being a mentor and having that experience. You're on the an NFL committee for is it head and neck injuries or brain?
It could be called that. It's the NFL Player Safety Advisory Panel, but probably 80% of our time has just spent on just that.
These individuals who are giving it all on the field, and obviously the person on the other side of the ball is working out just as hard or not harder. How do they manage that? I mean, with injuries. I mean, with contracts that they're not guaranteed. They're pushing to get back on the field. Like, how is that for you negotiating? Or whoever the medical advisor is? I mean, that's got to be a really, really tough position to be in.
Yeah, it's hard because, right, you've allocated your human capital, so to speak, into this one thing, and oftentimes not only your physical abilities but your mental abilities. I always tell guys that there's no such thing as a dumb jock. Like, if you're a defensive back in the NFL, you can understand complex concepts. Like, it happens that you live in this space, and so this is where you understand complex concepts. And so the idea that maybe they can't do this anymore and can use that mental power to be great at something else, not right away, but in time, it's a really difficult pill to swallow. I think of all the sports, football is the highest athletic identity, right? In terms of just defining oneself as a football player. And so it's just a very, fine line, tough decision when it comes to, my head. And if I incur a head injury, is there now a bit of a hex on me in the free agent market? How many more can I really tolerate before we're talking about long-term real struggles? The game has changed somewhat in that, the downhill ISO, where you've got your fullback and your middle linebacker spring 10 yards at each other, 20 times a game. It has moved to a less physical game than that, with certainly the rule implementations to protect the head has become a less dangerous game from a head injury standpoint. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes down to it, it's a violent land acquisition game. And on 3rd and 1, you're not going to keep your head out of it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And so we have a hard time balancing safety with these moments where it's do or die. And the people that do are the ones who get that life-changing money, and the guys that don't, are journeymen.
Well, yeah, you see it so much. I mean, from the fan standpoint, where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, ESPN used to have the top 10 hits when you would watch SportsCenter in the morning. Now, if you were to see any of those top 10 hits, there's a couple $1 million in fines easily, collectively on there. And you see these guys, a lot of times it happens to be when they're passing the ball, these D-backs, somebody going over the middle, and, they're making a split-second decision, and it's like, oh, well, you were targeting or you were this. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, and, I know it's all for safety, but it's a hard. I mean, I'd imagine even from from the NFL side, it's a hard line to walk because you want to protect their safety, but you're also taking away from the integrity of this is football, and it changes. And I think, all the technology that's implemented into these different things and safety and the way they design helmets and pads and everything else and the analytics that they put in will only help to make things safer, hopefully in the future. And, also this has become more of a business than, it's a business than anything else, right? You're paying Jalen Hurts $250 million, right? You better be sure that Jeffrey Lurie has got $250 million, $250 million wrapped up in this guy. You better make sure that he's protected as well as he can be. Tom Brady's the face of the NFL. If somebody sneezed on him, you were getting a 15-yard flag. And some of these other guys, it's your first year in the league. Oh, Tom Brady would have got that call. Well, you're not Tom Brady. You get 6 rings. You can come back and be the face of the NFL and talk to us. So, I mean, my family's had Eagles tickets for, this is 47 years. So we are diehard Philly fans. And I love football, man. I can't wait. I think tomorrow is the Hall of Fame game. I think is this week, right? I believe so, if I'm right. And it'll kick off again.
No, I'm sorry, next week.
Is it next week? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh no, I'm sorry. You're right. It's only Tuesday. Yeah, no, it is this week. Okay. Actually, there's a player safety panel meeting out in Canton.
It all runs together. So, but yeah, man, I love it. I love. How did you enjoy playing your time in Philadelphia? So you were on the Falcons. Not to get too personal when we beat you in the NFC Championship game.
We were both at that game.
We were talking about that earlier. Speaking of big hits, those were two when Ryan Dawkins hit Michael Vick on that scramble. And if you watch the replay, everybody thinks Vick scored on that play, but there was holding. It got called back. And then Algie Crumpler coming over the middle too when Dawkins hit him. That was probably one of the most core memories I have as an Eagles fan. Sitting there, we were always in the end zone, right in 302 in Veteran Stadium, and that was I would see it as clear as day when it happened. We were in the end zone watching the whole thing unfold, and I'm like, oh man, Dawkins got him.
I mean, Pat, like Zach was just saying. I mean, you grew up in Philadelphia, and you and I were talking last week that you're still a huge Philadelphia fan. I mean, butterflies. I mean, you're coming back to play in a stadium that ultimately it would be great to sign a contract with the Eagles growing up outside of Philadelphia. But like, how is that working to your? I mean, you're there to win. That's number one. But when you're coming back into the Link or that stadium, or you played in Atlanta or Seattle, like, how does that all factor into your game plan?
Yeah, really, I just had to make sure tickets were taken care of by Tuesday. I had a lot of friends and family, and I sent out notice early. I said, I am happy and honored and thrilled that you want to come to my game, but if you haven't told me you need a ticket by Tuesday, please don't bother me. And everybody respected that just fine. It's funny. We grew up in an era where it was real easy to, not just geographically, but from a talent standpoint, love the Eagles. Right? We had the gangrene defense. We had the ascent. We had the end of Ron Jaworski, the ascent of Randall Cunningham. Buddy Ryan and the Bounty Bowl. Easy to be a big Falcons fan. Debatably the best pass rusher ever in Reggie White. We got to watch front row, and so I grew up just bleeding the silver and green. And, I still am happy for the city when they won the Super Bowl. I'm happy for the Flyers' success and the Philly success and the Sixers' success. But I got to disavow the Eagles, man. They knocked me out of the playoffs twice.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out this year. This will be a big there's a lot of people with a lot to prove this year in Philadelphia. So we'll see. I mean, they're poised to do well, I think. Howie Roseman does it as good as anybody in the NFL, setting them up for success. And if they can stay healthy and just dumb it down, I think they're going to be really successful. I hope so, at least.
They have talent. The addition of Saquon, Saquon, I think, will continue to have the chip on his shoulder, not just for himself, but for the running back sector. that has spoken out a lot about the devaluation of what they bring to a team. I think Devin White is, he's on a 1-year prove it deal. And I've seen, I saw games where he was the best middle linebacker in football and sort of middled out a lot after that. I could see him having that chip on his shoulder and saying, "Hey, I got 17 games here to prove that I am a top 5 linebacker and should be committed to long term and paid commensurately." So those are, I think, 2 pretty good offseason additions to what is already a talented roster. I think you lose a little bit in heart and soul with Fletcher and Jason moving on,
Yeah.
but it seems to me they have pretty good team chemistry and will be able to develop a new generation of leaders to make them pretty tough to take down. Dallas will be strong again, but other than that, they're tough it's tough to see them not taking the East.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We always say Dallas is going to Dallas, so we hope that that continues on that way.
And that kind of segue to kind of a touchy subject for you, I guess, too, with regards to sports betting. And I remember being at the Falcons-Eagles game, and that was kind of like before fantasy football took off.
Yeah.
And I remember being up in the stands and looking down and seeing you on the sidelines. You were warming up and obviously during the game, but I could never get into fantasy football because I never wanted to have Troy Aikman be successful, or one of the Manning brothers be successful against the Eagles. So I always stayed away from fantasy football. Now your wife works for FanDuel, you mentioned. I mean, like that fine line of professional athletes, being able to or not being able to bet on a game. It's an interesting time for sure.
It's a crazy time, yeah, because you never know. And I mean, you watch these things and they're like, man, Vegas hit it spot on the over by half a point or whatever. And you're like, man, at a certain point, you're like, are they all in on it? You see these things running wild, conspiracies on the internet and stuff. And I mean, it's that in itself, the betting is big business. And, it's weird because, I mean, some of these guys, you never know. There's a lot more opportunity. They just threw the one guy got a lifetime ban. I forget his name in the NBA because he bet on a couple games. And I think he collectively won like $18 and then threw everything and they threw him out, which, I mean, you got to put your foot down on this stuff and make an example that, if you're even going to tiptoe this line, you're done.
Yeah. The professional sports leagues, they understand that even giving an inch on that turns them into the WWE overnight. And that can't happen. It's one of those things in terms of keeping athletes from doing it. It's where I always harken back on, like, look, man, you're not required to do this job. If you really want to gamble that much on sports, change careers. That's fine. That's an opportunity cost of being a professional athlete. And so, if guys really, if that's their cross to bear, I'd suggest they find another
outlet.
Yeah, I mean, the mentoring of retired professional athletes, I think it's something that a lot of people don't think about. With regards to being in that position, you played professionally for, like you said, 11 years, and there's guys and girls now that play professional sports that keep their head on straight, their level, with regards to all of the sidetracks that easily come into your life, like you said, with agents and gambling. But I think it's a lot of credit, for you to be able to go back to Virginia and talk to those athletes and with the whole world of collegiate athletes getting compensated because, they're the ones who are actually making a lot of the money, the TV deals, the deals with Nike and Adidas and Jordan. I always felt like they should be compensated. How they're compensated is always, I guess, an interesting, dynamic on like how much. But you look back when you played college lacrosse and football, and you're out on the field giving it your all, and then now all of a sudden you're throwing money into the mix.
it's hard. I don't know. In my opinion, I think that they should be compensated, but I think that the structure that they have now is terrible for college sports, especially college football, because you have these guys that can get in there and it says, okay, I committed to University of Alabama. I'm getting a $1 million in an NLI deal. Next year, Penn State's going to pay me 1.2, so I'm transferring out. Next year, I'm transferring over here. So it's kind of losing what college football, the tradition of everything that's in there. And I think it'll transition again. They'll figure out a different way. There'll be more rules. I mean, even Nick Saban was, he said everything we've built over my entire career is changing, so my time's out now. So I'm up. But I also understand it from the kid's standpoint, right? I may never make it to the NFL. I may never make it to the NBA or anything. So if I can make $25,000 this year by doing this and transferring to Rhode Island or wherever, Carolinas. Sure, I'm going to do that because it's going to help me. It's going to stack my money away. It can help my family. There's really good arguments, I think, for both sides of it. And I don't think one's better than another.
A correction was needed, right? Coaches were free agents at all times. Colleges were making immense profit margins. Yes, they paid for scholarships and room and board for athletes, but you look at any business and you look at the profit margin of having a top tier college football program, and it was too big of a profit margin. And there's that saying that your margin is my opportunity. And there was a lot of opportunity out there for athletes to say, wait a second, we're the labor. Without us, you don't have a product. You don't have that profit margin unless you give us some. And so a correction was needed. I believe this is an overcorrection. The state we are in now is an overcorrection. And to your point, Zach, it will calibrate somewhere back towards where it should be, where players are, compensated correctly, but also, not a free agent every year, and preserving that tradition of college football that really, when it comes down to it, is what people love about college football, is the fact that it's not professional and these are kids. So it will recalibrate things. They never change as fast as we want, even when we know they need to change. So I think one big step will be coaches being held accountable, because I think that was the root of this. Was, wait, you come and recruit me for 5 years and you leave after after I bought in for more money. The coach leaves for more money. Why can't I do that? Well, if coaches don't like this landscape, they need to come together and say, look, guys, if we hate this, if we hate chasing and we hate paying, like, it's time for us to say, we sign a 5-year deal. We're not going anywhere for 5 years.
It's almost like a contract. I mean, it's going to, it could potentially turn in that, could potentially be the best way to do it. All right, you're going to sign a contract. You're going to be the same way you would be if we signed a 4-year deal in the NFL. You can't transfer out. We could trade you. We could put you into the transfer portal, and then it really becomes down to, the alumni. You have a bigger endowment in your alumni. We got guys who really won a national championship here. So these, wealthy guys or women, whoever, they're putting up millions and millions of dollars that, so a small school can't keep up with. And all of a sudden these smaller schools are just getting knocked out. Their football program's going away. It's not a good big picture, but I think you're right. It'll recalibrate itself. It'll have to, because it's going to start affecting the bigger picture of college football business. And once that happens, once somebody starts losing money in the big picture, that's when things get adjusted or anywhere.
Yeah, and football's really unique with that too, because there's really no minor league football, right? And Pat, you remember Andy Piron, and Andy's son. They're living out in Idaho now, and his son's going to college out in San Diego. He's a golfer, and I was just looking at a couple of these colleges that are investing big money into practice facilities for golf. And, golf is a huge collegiate sport, even though a lot of people don't really talk about college golf. Mm-hmm. And his son's a really, really good golfer. He was playing in the Idaho State Championship, just a heck of a good kid. And, he's getting recruited to play golf in San Diego. And Andy was we were on a surf trip with him in April, and he's just kind of laughing about how these practice facilities are so state of the art. And again, golf, just like women's water polo or men's gymnastics, there's so much money in these collegiate sports, and I think that correction has to be done at some point.
I think so too. And the college sports are, a lot of it is legacy and tradition, and that's part of the draw. Especially down south where you have these. It's like it's your same thing. With the Eagles games, right? The tradition is you go up there, you're tailgating, you're out there. It's this crazy atmosphere, and if they take that away, all right, well, you just took away half of. At the end of the day, it's just a football game, really, but it's everything that surrounds it what makes it what it is, right? Like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, just a game, but it wasn't just a game. It was however many years, however many generations, all the time, tears, everything you've had invested in there, watching it with your family and everything, and those are the things that you can't put a price on. That if you lose them, that's when the cards really start to fall.
Yeah, you put it best. That is just a football game.
Yeah, I mean, you're not to downgrade it, but you know what I mean. That's what it is, And
well, it's either a football game or practice.
And we're talking about practice,
right?
Yeah.
So
they.
Absolutely. I get a quick story, and I have a friend who flew into town. His in-laws have a place in Avalon, New Jersey, and grew up in Colorado. Huge Broncos, huge Rockies fan, and I got tickets, club level tickets to the Broncos Eagles. This is years ago, over Christmas break, and I told Greg, I said, do not wear any orange and blue. And he's like, well, I've been to Oakland, and, I've been here and I've been there. I said, you've never been to a Philly game before. And, this is the meat of the season here. This game matters. And the Eagles ended up winning the game. The kicker for the Broncos missed a field goal, and the Eagles came back and scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter. But when we got out of my truck, we parked in the regular lots, and he had a Champ Bailey jersey. And I said, this is pretty much the worst jersey you can wear, because he obviously played with the Washington Redskins for a number of years. And these guys, when he got out of the truck, Eagles fans, were unloading on Greg. Took his jersey off, put it in my truck, took his hat off, put it in his. He said, I'll cheer, but I will never, ever wear an opposing jersey here in Philadelphia. So, it's the heart and soul of Philadelphia.
And they wear that as a badge of honor, too, Philly fans.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, for sure.
Out of this, the last game at Veterans Stadium was the divisional playoff game where the Eagles also knocked me out of the playoffs when I was with the Falcons. And that was my first playoff game in Philadelphia. And so I had a bunch of buddies coming from all over the country. And one of them was actually a famous Philadelphia athlete on a not so famous team, the Philadelphia Wings. His name's Jay Jalbert, and he got deemed the janitor. And came out of the tunnel sweeping with his stick. Is Jay the Janitor Jalbert? Well, Jay grew up on Long Island, he's a diehard Giants fan, and so all these buddies are coming to the vet for the last game, and it's a pretty select group that I know that if things go down, they'll be just fine. Of course, I still do say, hey guys, look, if y'all don't want to wear Falcons colors, I get it. Like, you don't want to deal with the headaches. My best friend then writes, if you don't wear Falcons colors, you're gonna have me to deal with. So on and so on. Well, my friend shows up in a red Michael Vick jersey, not just any Falcons jersey, but a red one. And my buddy Jay Jalbert shows up in a New York Giants Shockey jersey.
Oh boy!
Oh man, of all people, yeah, he was top 10 most hated, probably amongst my generation. Yeah.
So he reportedly, he's in the bathroom. There were chants of vulgar terms going towards him, and he ate it up. He was a fighter for the Wings, so again, he didn't mind so much. But
yeah, you go into the bathroom with another team's jersey on, man, that's no man's land. You better go in there with 3 or 4 of your friends, make sure you make it out alive. Yeah, it's great. I think it's definitely gotten better over the years. I mean, I don't know. You know what it is? You get a 4 o'clock game, an 8 o'clock game, where people can get out there 1 o'clock and tailgate, 6-7 hours. The longer those fans have to stay outside and hang out, the rowdier it gets.
If Cape May is family friendly to this extreme, that's the other.
Yeah.
It's great. We have one of our friends, Dan, actually, a Cowboys fan. And we did a big tailgate maybe 2 years ago. The Eagles were playing the Cowboys on Sunday night. And the guys that we sit with, we tailgate with a whole group. We got an RV and everything. This guy, Dan, came. There was a whole group that came up. And and he's a Cowboys fan. And I'm like, listen, are you going to wear your jersey? And he's like, yeah, of course I am. Of course I am. Shows up at the game, just had like a white T-shirt on. He's like, nah. He's like, listen, man, I grew up around here. I'm not stupid. He said, I'm going to cheer for him, but I'm not standing out here in that jersey. So that's probably a good decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know what? You want to sit out there and enjoy it, have a couple beers, hang out, talk to your friends, this and that. Every person that walks by trashing you. And
we went to a Phillies game, the NL Division Championship out in L.A. years ago. And, L.A. Stadium is Dodger Stadium's in East L.A. I mean, it's a gnarly area. And we went in, we wore no red, we clapped. At about the 7th inning, we got up out of our seats and started walking towards it. The Phillies ended up winning the game. We started walking towards the parking lot, and we celebrated in our car because, we didn't want to mess around out there. So
it's funny, though, how generational it is. This was like a proud dad moment. This was last night, actually, and my son's playing a little basketball league here. It's actually in Cape May, right behind what's the church? Our Lady Star of the Sea. There's a little gym there in the little rec center, and there's like a basketball league. My son's 6, so this other girl on her team, dad is a Cowboys fan, and they always kind of go back and forth. And the girls in his class, 6-year-old, whatever, and they were out on the court playing. They do like half drills, and then they play for half the other half of the time. And the girl's dad was standing there, and he said something. He's like, "Oh, something." Luke, my son's name is Luke, and he's like, "Oh, something, Luke." And he turns around and he goes, "Yeah, boo, Cowboys." And I just kind of picked up on it from the other side of the bleachers, and I'm like, "That's right, man, proud dad moment right there." Yeah, I didn't even have to egg him on. He knows. I always joke that my daughter's name is Amelia. And she's 8, and I'm like, you could spell Eagles before you could spell your name, right? That was the first word. You might not have known what you were spelling, but you had the chant down. You got it before you could spell your name. That was the first word you could spell. We always laugh about it. So yeah, it's good stuff, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's all we got, Pat.
Well, great walking down memory lane, both in Cape May and in unsuccessful ventures into the Link and the Vet. Even though they weren't successful, they're still great memories.
Good memories.
Yeah, well,
sure.
No, thanks for hopping on the podcast with us. And next time you're in town, we'll get together for a beer or coffee.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Enjoy the summer and good luck with the upcoming season too.
Likewise.
All right, take care.
Thanks,
Pat.
man. Have a good one.